What's cracking YouTube? I am back and I'm here to talk about Star Wars. So I was alerted to this article by Eric on Twitter, thanks for the tip. And this is a very interesting article. It's very long. Like when I clicked on it first and scrolled down, I was like, oh no, this is very long, this article. So I'm going to do my best to read it to you. And I'm sure there'll be lots of points of contention with my audience in particular with this article. The title is Racism, Misogyny and Death Threats, How Star Wars Fans Turned to the Dark Side. And it's by Brandon Katz from The Observer, observer.com. It talks a lot about the dark side of the Star Wars fandom. But the thing is that it only really mentions people's real issues with The Last Jedi in one paragraph out of 20. And I think it tends to focus on stuff that's, a lot of it's been overblown or some of it's not even correct. But that's just my opinion. This guy has his opinion, Brandon Katz, and I'm sure you'll find some interest in this article if you want to listen. If you want to read it for yourself, link in the description. It's very long, okay? So I'll do my best to do it. There'll probably be lots of cuts in this video because I'm definitely going to stuff up at certain points. So it says, for entertainment reporters, sharing opinions is a job. But when you do that with Star Wars films, someone may call you the C word. Following the release of The Last Jedi in 2017, Vanity Fair's Joanna Robinson wrote a review, quote, "One thing that I got a lot of negative feedback was my exploration of mansplaining. What Laura Dern and Carrie Fisher's characters had to deal with." End quote. You know, normal entertainment reporter stuff. Quote, "I got called a cunt, bitch, and told to kill myself because of that. It sounds cynical, but I'm kind of used to it at this point. But if you take a step back, it's crazy that Star Wars fans have told me to kill myself repeatedly." End quote. Something is deeply broken among the Star Wars faithful. Respectable discourse has deteriorated completely as a small but determined minority of fans turn to the dark side, hate-spewing assholes, looking to ruin the party for everyone, and often succeeding. Whew. But the thing is that people who have disagreements all tend to get lumped in that. I'm sure there's some people that do that, right? But the vast majority of people that just disagree with the current direction, and you're just lumping them all into the one group when it's not right at all. It's easy to dismiss their criticisms if you do that, rather than listening to them and think, well, maybe they have a point. Lots of people have these same thoughts. It's not just a few fringe crazies, right? Disney and Lucasfilm Solo: A Star Wars Story hits theatres in 10 days, which means the movie's creators, actors and normal fans, who just like a good lightsaber battle, should quickly find a Hoth-like hideout to survive the inevitable online backlash and warmongering fallout. Look, I've said I'm going to see it and I'm going to judge it, and what I say, if I like it, I'm going to say to you that I like it. If people want to unsub because of that, it's all good. I'm just going to give you my honest opinion, and if you can't handle it, or anyone out there can't handle it, it's all good. And each section in this article has a title. So the title for this section is "The Fans Prove Everyone's Terrible." Following the release of The Last Jedi, writer-director Rian Johnson's Twitter feed was bombarded with deranged messages from disgruntled fans who hated his film with such a fiery passion that even Palpatine would recoil in fear and disgust. In addition to the masses of angry everyday fans, even such illustrious figures as Stormy Daniels took aim at the filmmaker. And this is the tweet from Stormy Daniels. Steaming pile of shit, greater than The Last Jedi. Go ahead, unfollow me. In case no one has noticed, I don't give a fuck. It's the worst movie ever made, and Rian Johnson can drop dead. And then there's a tweet from Rian Johnson, not linked to the previous tweet, which says, well, that was one crazy weekend. Sending love from Team Space Bear to every single one of our fellow Star Wars fans, and everyone who went on the journey with us this weekend. Love you guys. Someone replied to that tweet, Fabian Fisher. Did you enjoy joining Kathleen Kennedy in raping Luke Skywalker and Carrie Fisher's dead body? Question mark. That's just stupid. You don't need to be saying that shit. That's just stupid. That is fucking stupid. And then another tweet. This is unrelated to the previous ones. Ryan Johnson. My family was pretty religious growing up, so movies like Temple of Doom and Poltergeist I only got to experience through the novelizations, parentheses, which were of course even more gory than the movies. Christopher replied to that tweet. For some, Star Wars was almost a religion till you killed it. The hopes and dreams of millions died at your hand. The blood of that murder will always stain your future. Back to the article. Online petitions quickly sprang up calling for Disney to remake the movie entirely, which quickly developed Facebook groups including How Rian Johnson Ruined Christmas, parentheses, a Star Wars story, Disney killed Star Wars on December 14, 2017, and Fuck Rian Johnson and Kathleen Kennedy. Johnson received numerous death threats over a kids' movie about space samurai. That's a bit of an oversimplification, but that's their opinion. Visible Star Wars fans who have argued for the virtues of the film have been met with swift retaliation. Let's not say this is just one-sided. People like me and world-class bullshitters, Jeremy, Geeks and Gamers, John Talk Star Wars, Stephanie Janicek, who else can I name? Abu Nas, who else? Chris Wong Swenson, Film Gold, all the people, even like Star Wars Theory. I'm sure I'm missing out people, and I shouldn't be missing them out, but these ones that spring to mind. Ivan Ortega have also been met with criticism from people who think we're just haters. So it happens on both sides. Quote, I've had some Star Wars fans get a hold of my email address and sign me up for forums with abusive and threatening usernames. End quote. Brian Young, a writer, filmmaker and journalist who contributes to StarWars.com, told Observer, quote, I've had messages directed at me over the stupidity of naming my son Anakin. End quote. I personally wouldn't choose that name if I had a child, but free country, as they say. Vanity Fair's Robinson added, quote, I comfort myself with the thought that it has to be a minority. It can't be what the majority of the country and the whole world thinks, end quote. There are lots of people who don't like the film. Why is that hard for people to understand? Lots of people hate it. I'm not saying lots of people are doing this sort of stupid stuff and like attacking people and stuff. But why is it hard to understand that lots of people dislike it? But that shouldn't impact what you think. If you like it, that's all good. Just keep doing your thing. You can like it. I'm not saying you can't like it. I'm saying all these people that do not like it should be allowed to have that opinion. And don't call them haters or trolls or anything just because they dislike it. Star Wars fandom has always been passionate, but rarely has it told someone to commit suicide or hurled the expletive libtard as a common retort. Come on. Come on. A vast minority of people would be saying that. It didn't used to be like that. Okay, the next heading is, maybe not everyone's terrible. Maybe. It's easy to forget that when oft-derided The Phantom Menace opened back in 1999, there were a smattering of positive reactions. Filmmaker and Uber fan Kevin Smith wrote over at his View Askew site, quote, "Of the film, I can say many things, but the long and the short of it is that I liked it. Quite a bit. I'd rank it right after Empire in a list of fave Star Wars flicks. It starts great, ends great, and has great stuff sprinkled in between," end quote. Well, I just did my review of that film not that long ago, a few days ago. No, about a couple of weeks ago actually, and it wasn't good. That's just my opinion. Lots of people like them. Roger Ebert found the movie downright delightful, writing, quote, "Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, to cite its full title, is an astonishing achievement in imaginative filmmaking." And then it has a link, or it has the video like inserted there of Gabrielle, who came up about a week or two ago when another Star Wars writer from a blog sort of attacked this guy. That's the guy there. So I don't know why they're putting that video in the article. It's a bit strange. Of course, there were plenty of negative reviews and fan backlash, but the common narrative that, quote, "George Lucas ruined my childhood," end quote, didn't take on its full form until a few years later. Consumers simply weren't able to bully critics, parentheses, and one another with the digital ease and convenience and to the extent of what is possible today. When J.J. Abrams at Lucasfilm released the first teaser for The Force Awakens in 2014, roughly 1 year ahead of its premiere, it was dissected, analysed and judged to a greater degree than any other Star Wars product ever before. Parentheses, the trailer generated a then record of 112 million views within its first 24 hours. Immediately, fans began taking sides, with many excited at the prospect of Episode 7, but plenty more dismayed. Parentheses, one eye-opening tweet I remember seeing at the time criticised the trailer for having, quote, Tracy Morgan pop up out of nowhere. Caspero Moon tweets, "What? Question mark. Just found out the Star Wars trailer was not a spoof. What is Tracy Morgan doing there? Only in a galaxy far, far away." Oh, so they were getting Tracy Morgan. What? They thought Finn was Tracy Morgan? That's fucking weird. John Boyega. Seriously? Weird. It was a far more widely divisive ecosystem, with even more negativity than the prequel era. Those trailers didn't generate nearly the same level of aggressive skepticism, and this trend has continued through the sequel trilogy. Some moviegoers who didn't care for The Force Awakens stubbornly dug in their heels, forming online fan groups aimed at boycotting future Star Wars films, calling for their removal from canon, and systematically driving down audience scores sorry about this, an ad popped up and completely stuffed up that bit I was reading. Sorry about this. Stubbornly dug in their heels, forming online fan groups aimed at boycotting future Star Wars films, calling for their removal from canon, and systematically driving down audience scores on aggregate review sites. Okay, so we're going back to this now. That's been debunked largely. There might have been a few people doing something like that, but not a significant not a significant amount to impact the overall score in any big way. People are just using that as some type of scapegoat to brush over the fact that people just didn't like this film, right? Lots of people didn't like it. Don't blame bots. Don't blame Trump, okay? Don't blame whatever you want to blame, okay? People just didn't like it that much. That's it. The same group that took credit for The Last Jedi Rotten Tomatoes tumble formed a since-removed alt-right Facebook group and tried to take down Marvel's Black Panther back in February. Oh, that really worked, didn't it? That worked. Yeah, Black Panther, that was trash, wasn't it? Didn't make any money, that film. Didn't get good reviews, that film, did it? In response to the concerning rise in toxicity and hostility, the hashtags Star Wars Rep Matters and Star Wars is a girl thing too have been cultivated by online communities to try to combat these fans. These groups promote mental health awareness, diversity, inclusion, and a sense of positive thinking among the Star Wars faithful. I've never heard of those hashtags. I guess they ring true then. But as we know, it takes more than well wishes to slay a Sith Lord. Every single Star Wars movie is inherently goofy and good-natured in its own way, meant to be digestible, enjoyable, and soaring all at once, specifically because they are fantastical yet relatable adventures designed to appeal to both 12-year-old and a 40-year-old. They are excellent products of function. However, the film community often treats the series as holy scripture, which is where both the good and the bad are born. Next title. Actually, first. There is a sense of that. I do have to agree with that. There is a sense of treating Star Wars as almost a religion. People take it very, very seriously. A lot more seriously than other IPs. Very seriously. I think people should maybe back off a little bit from that, but that's just my opinion. Next title, the disintegration of Star Wars fandom. Quote, I honestly think that Star Wars is the most hotly debated for two reasons. One, it's the most popular, and two, it's part of our contemporary mythology. Star Wars is religion, even for those who have their own theologies. Star Wars reinforces it. For many people, these are serious and sacred texts and have helped them through as many problems in their life as the Quran or the Bible. I think if you look at the recognisability of characters, Batman and Superman, indeed most popular comic book characters, have that same sort of lesson teaching ingrained in many generations. It makes it seem more personal to them. End quote. Passion has helped sustain Lucas's creation for more than 40 years and generated billions upon billions of dollars. Passion is why the fan community's 501st Legion cosplayed for charity. Sorry about that. But there's an ugly side to passion as well, one that will likely boil over again in some form with Solo. Quote, it seems important to understand that fandom is different from other forms of affinity we experience. End quote. Cultural anthropologist Susan Kresnicker, founder and president of Kresnicker Research and Insights, told Observer, quote, when we are fans, the object of fandom, OOF, meets very real, very important human needs surrounding self-care, social connection and identity. When we are fans, the object of fandom comes to represent some facet of who we consider ourselves to be, our moral values, our beliefs, our politics, our priorities, our approach to life, etc. So when we are defending our OOFs, we are defending ourselves, which helps to explain the passion and vehemence that characterise our reactions, end quote. By that logic, these fans must have felt personally threatened, though who can really understand why, when they directed this hate towards The Last Jedi. Writer-director Rian Johnson and Lucasfilm President Kathleen Kennedy. There's a tweet from Rian Johnson that says, been deep diving into the Desert Island Discs archive. This George Abbott one from the mid-80s was a real find. DG replied, Ryan, have you ever thought about what the world would be like if you had never been born? I sure have. Those alternate timelines seem better than the ones where Hitler was never born. I mean, you don't need to be saying just stupid shit. I mean, don't bring Hitler into this. Come on. An unrelated tweet from Ron Johnson. Attention music likers. If you haven't seen Kid Koala play live, he's a beast. And this is going to be an amazing show. Trumpets Call replies. Thanks for destroying my childhood. I would rather have Ed Wood making The Last Jedi. You and Kathleen Kennedy ruined Star Wars. Good job. And there's a picture there saying wanted, dead or alive, and there's a picture of Kathleen Kennedy. Again, just stupid stuff. Come on, don't do any like death threats and that stupid shit. I mean, it's all fucked up. If you're doing that, you're a fucking idiot, right? Next title. Why these new Star Wars fans are the worst. So what specifically are the most common arguments made by incensed fans these days? Some of the more level-headed viewers out there have pointed to the story and character-specific issues as to why they didn't enjoy The Last Jedi. A majority of people that dislike the film point to those things. Vast majority. These include problems with how Luke's character was handled. Yes. The movie's inconsistent humour. Yes, inconsistent is a nice way of putting it. Leia pulling a Mary Poppins in space. Yes, another thing. A lack of payoff to mysteries raised in The Force Awakens. Yes. And other subjective concerns about plot and script elements. You name them pretty much, most of them right there, and you think that it's wrong that people criticise the film. You name them like one paragraph there, and that's probably like 80% of what people had problems with the film. It's completely justified based on that. Many dislike all of the Lucasfilm content made under Disney after the Mouse House scrubbed the expanded universe, bad decision, parentheses, 30 years of books and games, etc., from the official canon. Beholden to the previous parameters of the series, these fans are dead set on opposing any and all Disney-era Star Wars offerings. The harsh reaction to the 180 on Luke's character in The Last Jedi only drove that point further home, or the 180-degree turn, I think they mean. Ultra-right-wing fans have taken extreme umbrage with the sequel trilogy and Anthology's emphasis on diversity. These viewers can't seem to accept a black main character, parentheses, John Boyega's Finn, or heroic female leads, parentheses, Daisy Ridley's Rey and Felicity Jones's Jyn Erso from Rogue One. Who's that? A female lead character who people like. Men and women. So don't give us this bullshit. That is just absolute bullshit. If you've got a cool character, people don't give a fuck what gender they are, right? What race they are. Doesn't matter. So this is what happens when you do long articles. The battery of my phone ran out, so I've got it hooked up to the charger. And keep going, let's go. Boyega called these viewers out right around the release of The Force Awakens, saying they were, quote, victims of a disease in their mind, end quote, and that he was a, quote, confident Nigerian black chocolate man, end quote. People don't have a problem with him being black, right? I mean, the vast majority don't. Has nothing to do with it. People love Lando, right? It's not about being black, right? It's just an easy way to dismiss criticism to say that. Ridley has dismissed all of the Mary Sue talk around her character as blatantly sexist. She is a Mary Sue. Confirmed. It is in these complaints that the racist and chauvinistic undertones of the fandom can be seen in all of their provincial ugliness. Just dismissing criticism with this type of talk is ridiculous. It doesn't actually help Star Wars when you do that. Because people are telling you what's wrong with it. And you're not listening to them. It's like, it's so stupid. It's so stupid. These viewers are afraid of what they perceive to be the diminishing power of the white male in society. I'm sure some people think that. I'm sure some people think that. And in popular culture, this is coming from someone who's half white, half Asian, there does seem to be an element of that. Alright? That's from what I've seen. Where are these like strong, masculine, even black characters? Where are they these days? They tend to be ditching a lot of these more masculine type roles for some reason. In Star Wars, where's the masculine man in the latest incarnations of Star Wars? Where? They've got what's his name from Rogue One, but he's cast as a bad guy. Well, pretty much. Pretty much. But he does redeem himself in the end. These are the fans who make Star Wars a particularly hostile environment for some to traverse, especially for female entertainment reporters. Oh, come on. Who receive endless streams of nasty hatred online. I get my fair share of hatred online. Believe it. Except these aren't fans at all. They're simply trolls who want to stir up controversy and elicit reactions. They're nothing more than attention seekers who are struggling to find arenas for bullying after grade school. I'm sure the people who act stupid and stuff, they're just idiots in general, right? Just fucking idiots. But to dismiss criticism from people and claiming they're like schoolyard bullies or they haven't got over that, I mean, you're only going to make Star Wars worse if you don't listen to these people who have genuine criticisms. Unless that's what you want. Do you want it to be worse? Do you want people to hate it even more? This is the next title. Fans versus Trolls. How technology only encourages hatred. Whether they would admit it or not, the Hollywood powers that be want to hear from fans to better construct blockbusters that appeal to mass demographics, especially as the movie-making landscape becomes further dominated by familiar IP. But acting on that feedback can produce drawbacks of its own. Quote, long-standing franchises, parentheses, like Star Wars, often carry modern political baggage by nature of being made in earlier eras, when men, white people, straight people, etc., were even more socially privileged. And thus overrepresented in media, end quote. KR&I's Rachel Aparicio, a media studies scholar, told Observer, quote, newer iterations of these franchises have often responded to those critiques by being somewhat more inclusive. However, this leads to the, parentheses, arguably correct perception that modern media is responding to a social justice agenda. This has made popular culture a lightning rod for conservatives, particularly conservative white men. There are plenty of women who are criticising this as well, right? Plenty of women, plenty of people who aren't white who are criticising this. Just go search on YouTube. I did that video a while ago where it listed all the channels from people of different races, different genders who've been criticising this. Not just white men. Simple. And it's just another way to distract from the real topic, the real issues. Who see this process as symbolic of their, parentheses, perceived lessening of social and political power, end quote. Here's a tweet from Sith Lord Luke Skywalker. Fuck Ryan Johnson. That piece of shit. I can even put on A New Hope without getting my 8-year-old saying, "This isn't going to go the way you think," then laughs at how much Luke Skywalker sucks in The Last Jedi. Sith Lord Luke Skywalker again. Oh no. Someone replies to that tweet, Russian bot 497. That goddamn son of a bitch cut his own penis, parentheses, at least figuratively, to be accepted as a non-male director by that insane Nazi witch KK. What's next? Question mark. Justice for earthworms? Question mark. Disney accepts only amoebas to work as screenwriters? Question mark. Another tweet from Thor Snapped FR. Man, fuck that movie. Fuck Rian Johnson. Fuck Disney. And fuck all you Star Wars nerds who hyped the shit up since The Force Awakens. Y'all will perish. That's all in caps, by the way. Another tweet by K. Wyatt. Haha. Wow, I just read a spoiler for The Last Jedi, and I hope you choke, Rian Johnson. And then we've got Rian Johnson tweeting, must be a reply to that. Sorry, any physical threat, parentheses, no matter how flippant, gets you blocked. Also, sorry you can't read this because you're blocked. K. White responds, block me then, pal. Some smiley faces. I'm not the one that made an abusive relationship the centre of my movie. Back to the article. Quote, these fans are lashing out in a way that is protective of straight white men, end quote, Robertson observed. While countless fans have cultivated well-founded and articulate criticisms of the new films, it is these rabble-rousers who harp on a franchise's diversity that seem to dominate the conversation with the loudest voices. That's not true at all. That is not true at all. When have you heard any of the people who I mentioned on YouTube talking about that stuff? In those terms, people talk about social justice, but they're not saying this type of like abusive, just ridiculous stuff. They're not saying that, right? Name one instance where one of those people has like made a death threat against Rian Johnson or Kathleen Kennedy, right? They haven't done it. At the root of the issue is a difference in opinion that has been taken to its extreme. Quote, I think the splits occur because people like different things, and they forget that not every piece of Star Wars media can be all things to all people, Young said. We all have different tastes, and sometimes people think their taste knows better than the artist who created it. And it absolutely is only louder and more noticeable because of social media. But for anyone willing to talk about Star Wars, from the very beginning, good or bad, the debate has always been passionate, end quote. Perhaps this isn't anything new. Perhaps this was just a dormant virus waiting for mass communication technologies to develop so that it could infect and multiply. Young argues that Star Wars fandom first fractured with the much reviled special editions in 1997, and then again with a divisive prequel trilogy. Had Twitter been around back then, we would have been witnessing the same types of online battles. We now live in the age of entitlement and anonymity, and anyone who has ever pursued a comment section can see that it has given free rein to the darker corners of the internet that don't have to face the consequences of their words. The internet will always house trolls, despite their inevitable presence. These figures seem to be the most drawn to blockbuster franchises, parentheses. Some fans of the DC superhero movies are known to share a similar temperament. What? What? Marvel and DC fans are equally guilty in this regard, okay? Let's not talk bullshit here. Don't just blame DC. Marvel fans, I've got criticised so many times from Marvel fans, you wouldn't believe it, alright? They give you my honest reviews of films. So don't even start with just calling out DC here. That is complete bullshit. Both sides do it. Emerging with ultra-aggressive takes and bullying journalists, actors, directors and fans who don't share their views. Man, I did those response videos because I got so much criticism from Marvel fans because I didn't like their movies. A few of them. Man, I got so much criticism. You wouldn't believe it. It is in these self-constructed echo chambers, online echo chambers, in which these kinds of issues first begin to sprout and inevitably lead to conflict. Ultimately, despite all of the benefits that the internet and social media provide in disseminating information and improving communications, it may have torn down the healthy manner in which we use to consume and debate cinema. And there's a tweet here from Virgin Radio Tatooine. Fuck Ryan Johnson. I literally can't even think about this movie because it makes my blood boil. Notice how I said movie, not film, because this is far from a film. It is a vile, feminist-centered, diversity-driven, soy-powered, misandric, matriarchal PSA that ruins the lore and world building given to us by the prequels and... I can't finish the tweet there, sorry about that. There's a picture of Ryan Johnson in front of it. Next heading. The real reason Star Wars fans have lost their minds. So why has Star Wars fandom turned to the dark side? Question mark. Some fans simply cannot handle deviation from the original trilogy. As Young properly noted, there are large segments that consider those films holy texts. Quote, affirmational, curational fans. Never heard that word before. End quote. That Kresniker says are invested in preserving and sometimes even sacralizing the early stories like a fossil. Okay. In this vein, a strange dichotomy has emerged where The Force Awakens was knocked for being too similar to the original Star Wars, and The Last Jedi has been criticised for being too different. Different is okay, but it has to be good still. It can't just be different and trash. You're never going to please everyone. Yes, you can make a different movie that's good, and people will like it. Or you can make The Force Awakens, just make a new movie which is different but good. Just don't rehash A New Hope. Solve your problem there. You're never going to please everyone, but the Star Wars fandom can't even agree on what they disagree about. With The Last Jedi they can. Some fans can't align themselves with films that seem to counter their inner social and political beliefs, no matter how worthy Boyega and Ridley have proven themselves of being. I'm not saying they haven't proved themselves, I'm saying that the way they've written the characters, they haven't proved themselves. What's there to like about those characters anymore? I just don't care about those characters. I couldn't give a rat's. The real reason trolls have lost their minds when it comes to Star Wars may be more elemental. This series has 40 plus years of esteemed history behind it. A track record no other pop culture franchise can match. It's in our DNA. It is modern American mythology that has supplanted ancient Greek lore, which observer, contributor and cinema analyst, film crit, Hulk described as, quote, morality tales with lessons of hubris and pain and suffering. They're parables meant to inform us about our own human shortcomings, end quote. Star Trek has the same multi-generational fan base, but it wasn't as revolutionary or as quickly embraced as Star Wars. The original show was cancelled after 3 seasons and only became a phenomenon years later. The James Bond series goes back even further than Star Wars, but with its rotating cast of main actors and no semblance of running continuity, it never let audiences get emotionally invested enough to be revered or as closely guarded in the same way as Star Wars. Maybe when these movies present something that doesn't align with this minority groupthink, the extreme detractors see it as Disney futzing with history, altering the course of their own lives that were spent growing up in tandem with this franchise. Perhaps it feels like a personal attack on their core memories, like a hostile takeover of their inside-out mainframe. It can't be easy to see a friend of more than 4 decades head down a path you're not comfortable with. But if your fandom has calcified to the point where you're only seeking out the negatives and looking to cut others down over their enjoyment of the series, then you're not even a fan at all. You're just a sad little troll. And that is the end of the article. And that article was by Brandon Katz from Observer.com. And I think I'm losing my voice because I've been reading this thing. Jesus. So what do I think about that? Oh, it's just lots of dismissing and blowing up a very small amount of people say, and just painting everyone with that brush. And the thing is that it's annoying that people think like that and they can't take on the criticism about this film. And like he's saying, it's just a film, right? It's just a film. So why can't you accept our criticism of it? Why is it, oh, we're all racist, we're all sexist, we all hate Ray, we hate John Boyega? Who's saying that? I hate the characters. Yeah, you're right, I do. I'm not going to apologise for that. I hate the characters. They turn Finn into a goddamn joke, into some type of buffoon, and raise a Mary Sue. What's there to like about that? Why do you have a character as cool as that right there? A cool-ass female character who smokes every female character in the sequel trilogy and Rogue One, right? She smokes them, and I wonder why. Because she's cool as fuck, and she earned her position. She wasn't given shit, right? Wasn't given shit. So, that's what I think. I think that I'm losing my voice. So, I haven't really got that much to say because I spoke during the article. There's lots of stuff for you to comment on in the comment section. If you listened all the way through, good luck and thanks for doing that. But I think I need to edit this thing and that's going to take a long time. So tell me what you think about that article. It's interesting to get different points of view. I'm not hating Brandon Katz for the article. That's his opinion. He's allowed to have his opinion. I'm allowed to disagree with it. I don't hate the guy or anything like that. I actually like reading those articles on my channel because it gives people that follow my channel who have a different perspective a chance to look at the opposite side's perspective and how they think. So all good. Shout out to Brandon Katz if you're watching. I doubt it. Some people's articles who I've read actually watch the videos. I've got comments from them in the past. So I appreciate that. Thanks for watching. Hope you're having a good day as always. Catch you later. Peace.